Hey everybody, I'm Joey Evans, and we're going to do some quick reviews now. And these are games that probably have been reviewed elsewhere on the channel by a big full review that I happen to not be in. So I'm going to give you some thoughts on those. I'm going to try to keep this short. I'm going to try to see if we can get this done in 10 minutes. All right, let's do some quick reviews starting now. First off, we have Unchained by Trick or Treat Studios. This is a game that I was very excited about because I love the universal horror monster style of theme. This is a remake of a game called Nightfall. I have not played the original Nightfall. I know Z has and he loved it. So I was pretty excited about playing Unchained. Unchained is called that because you're pretty much chaining cards. You're battling back and forth and you're putting cards down and you're having to chain them, make a longer and longer chain to be able to kind of attack the other player and also put your cards forward for attack or defense. So that's pretty much what it is. It's battling back and forth. And the artwork on this is great, but there's several things about this that it didn't click. Number one, the game just wasn't fun. It wasn't enjoyable at all. I didn't enjoy the game, and it's just, you kind of drug through it, kind of like when you put those cards forward, when you finally play through your entire chain of hands, your chain. You'd put them forward, and when you'd hit the other person, it would feel very non-eventful. Like when the big thing is when you're doing a battler back and forth, you have those massive hits, right? Like 28, 30 points, boom, and you're like, yeah, that's what I've been aiming for. And here it's just very anticlimactic. It's like, okay, they get a fatigue. And it's like, oh, that's kind of it? And the same thing, it's like, oh, I barely hit you. Here you go, fatigue. Oh, I hit you really hard. Here's a fatigue. And it was just kind of like, I feel like I was going through the motions. I mean, the building the deck was kind of interesting because you're grabbing those and you're like, oh, I could chain that if that shows up. But really, if it shows up at the perfect time, what's the best that could happen? A fatigue. And it was very just blah for me. And it was very sad. And this was a big disappointment because I think the artwork was great. I thought the idea was great. I thought the theme was great. The execution for me just was a big miss. This I'm going to give a 4.5 out of 10. And it's only that high because honestly the artwork on it is great. I would like to see them keep going to this Universal monster as well, but see if they can get it right. That's Unchained. Okay, the next game is actually based on a video game that I am pretty much the only person in the world that has not played. This is Slay the Spire. I knew nothing about the game. I knew the game existed. I never played it. So the board game, when I went in, I was like, okay, maybe. But I gotta say, I was really surprised. This game was great. This game, first off, the box is huge, right? And you've got miniatures in there that pretty much are not needed. But the thing I like about this game is I love the upgrading mechanic. And also you've got the kind of trail up the middle as you go through, and it's like a little mini campaign every time you play it. You've got branching paths on that center piece. And then on top of that, I love the deck building in this. The deck building is great. The artwork is fantastic. And the way you battle, it's truly cooperative because you have monsters in your row that are attacking you. But you can also help other people. If you see someone else has got, they have their hands full over there, I'm going to reach over there and help them. And they're going to help you, and back and forth. It really works. I was surprised at how much I like this game for someone that's not a fan of the video game. So I'm actually coming in at a 9 on this. This is Slay the Spire. Even if you don't play the board game, I really recommend checking out this game because it'll surprise you. It did me. It's a good one. It's a 9. It's Slay the Spire. Okay, this is another surprising game for me. It's a pirate push your luck game that's all about getting treasure, which, let's face it, all pirate games should be about that. This is Pirate Tales. Pirate Tales, like I said, is a push your luck game where you're rolling dice and you're kind of going on a journey and you're pushing your luck to get further and further on the journey. So you're trying to get forward, and then if you get too far, there's a kraken that actually comes at you and you start to flip cards and back and forth. What I like about this is several things. Number one, I love push your luck. Number two, I like when you bust, you also fail forward. I like that mechanic because it's not a total loss to bust in this game. And I love dice. And I love the fact that you can upgrade your dice. You can go from white dice to I think it's red. And you can keep upgrading your dice and you feel more powerful as you start going forward. For example, if you barely win, the next time you're going to really win. And that is what I think games are about, is that buff. that you get. And Pirate Tales gets it. It's a bit on the lighter end as far as like complexity. But that being said, I think it's fine because it's like one of those that you'll play as an end of the night game to roll out, and the components are great. I really think I enjoy this a lot. It's a fun dice rolling, push your luck game that a lot of people have not played, so you should check it out. It is Pirate Tales. Okay, so this game has been like one of my most anticipated every year for the last probably 1,000 years. This is Seventh Citadel. Seventh Continent, I loved Seventh Continent. When my family would leave, I would play a solo game of Seventh Continent. Seventh Continent had some problems, obviously, as it just kind of, the stories would kind of drag on because they'd end up being like 3, 4, 5 hours because you wander around aimlessly. I love open world, but Seventh Continent was a bit too open. This one, Seventh Citadel, has fixed that because the scenarios, they feel tight. They feel like everything is, you know what you're supposed to do. You don't wander around as much as Seventh Continent. You have a bit more direction. It's a bit more movie-like rather than just a normal day of you just wandering. So that's what I like about it. And I also like, there are branching storylines, so it's not like there are just big rails on it, right? It's like if you find item X, then the next mission is C. But if you fail to find item X, then you might have mission B. So different things like that. There are branching storylines, but it's all in a nice little bubble. I think it really works well. It's also not as punishing because the thing about Seventh Continent, it made me enjoy the story more than the whole like, okay, I'm going to die. Because I wouldn't really reset a lot. I'd be so immersed in the story after 2.5 hours, you'd find a way to kind of fudge it and keep going on with the story. This one, Seventh Citadel, kind of builds that in. It's not as hard, I guess, as punishing. So other one, you're just trying to survive. This one, you really enjoy the exploration. And I'm trying to be as vague as possible because I want you to explore this for yourself. But the storyline, again, I love the story in this. This is a huge hit for me. And this is a 9 from me. This is Seventh Citadel. Okay, so now probably the biggest game on the list, which says something, but this is Primal. Primal is, when it came in, it was so many boxes, so many miniatures. It is a boss battler where, think on a very simple, think Thanos Rising, kind of turning the middle. It's not like Thanos Rising at all. But you got that center monster that turns, and you'll have quadrants. You're jumping back and forth, and you're working cooperatively to attack that monster in the middle. It is a boss battler, and it does it great because there's so many things I like about this. Fresh off of Witcher Old World, which I played, which makes you think it's like a monster battler thing, but it's more of a campaign story. This is just a beat 'em up. This is you're just attacking that monster. Now, there's a campaign version of this as well, but there's also one-offs, which I love. That brings me in. When you have a one-off and you don't have to invest in a campaign, you can just sit there and play a great game, and that's what this has. It also has very asymmetric characters. All the characters play different. They have different strengths, different weaknesses. I really like that. I also like the fact that you plan your attack by moving and planning back and forth, back and forth. You've got deck building, you've got upgrading, everything. This game really clicks, and the fight itself feels unique. The way the monster reacts different times, you can anticipate, but there can also be surprises as cards show up, where it's going to go, and it levels up as the monster gets weaker and weaker. There's so many things that make this click as a boss battler. Now, I will say negative-wise, this is a fairly simple game for the $300 or $400 price point. And I tried to not include that in the review the game itself. But when it's something like this is that high, it has to be, you have to take note of it. And I really wish, because this game is strong enough, that there was a version out there that had acrylics or standees. Forget standees, acrylics. Because several reasons. Number one, the price point. The price point is very high. You have to ask yourself, is it worth it? Because the game is great, which is sad. But is it worth, number one, the price? Number two, the shelf space that it's going to take up an entire, if you have a couch, 2 or 3 shelves is going to take up all of this. So does it warrant that? I don't know. That's for you to decide. But because of that high price point and because of the fact that it's going to take up 2 shelves, this is coming in for me at an 8. I really, if they had a standee version, if they just did a standee version, it would go up to a 9 for me. But for right now, I love the game, but I don't know if it warrants the price and the fact that you pretty much have to get a second house to store all this stuff. So whether or not that should have been in the review, for me, it's something that I have to take into account when looking at this. But it is a great game. I think if it's out there, if you ever see it at a convention, a Dice Tower convention or anything, play it because it is great. But is it worth it? That's up to you. It's a good game. And that is Primal. Whoo! Okay, that is it. That is 5 quick reviews. And did I get it done in 10 minutes? I won't know until I edit it. But let's say I did. Probably didn't. Who knows? All right. Hey, I'm Joey Evans, and I'll see you later on the channel.
Hey folks, thanks for joining us for that video. If you haven't yet, like the video, subscribe to the channel, and hey, make sure you check out what's happening where I'll cover an app on an iOS or a Switch device, and you can check it out along with me. Thanks very much. You've been watching The Dice Tower.